Thank you so much. You may be seated. Welcome to our Main Streets part of the Red, White, Bach, and Bluegrass Festival. Thank you, Sewanee, for having us, as you have for so many years. We have a wonderful concert for you today. We're going to start with a little bit of Bach, actually. This is the Prelude in D from the Pianoforte Suites. 7 years ago, I did my first concert here with the Main Street Symphony. And when I was first told about Main Street Symphony and this particular concert, the first thing in my mind, I immediately jumped to, oh, Bach, we have to play Toccata and Fugue in D minor. It's only the most known piece by Bach in the history of the world. And I started working with the orchestra and I was like, no, not this year. And then I just went to the next year, not this year. And the next, not this year. Oh wait, and also COVID. So next year, and next year. And finally, we had cultivated a really, really good practice and performance thing. And this year I was like, I have to do it. This has to be the year that we do this great piece. So without further ado, this is the Toccata and Fugue in D minor. So, of course, with every Bach piece, there is a corresponding bluegrass one. And so ours today is going to be Rocky Top. So if there's any volunteer fans out there, y'all can sing. Our next piece is going to be our Armed Forces Salute, and I would invite all who have served to stand when you hear your theme. That would be the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, the Marines, and the Coast Guard. So I hope you enjoy the Armed Forces Salute. we thank you all for your service. Thank you so much. When I received a phone call 8 years ago in 2017, and it was somebody asking about performing with the Main Street Symphony. And I had never heard of it before. And so I said, well, that sounds like a lot of fun. And I talked to my wife about it, and she said, you should do it. I said, okay. So I started coming to rehearsals and conducting and getting to know these lovely, lovely people that you see before you. And I have been honored to be with them for these past 8 years. However, all good things must come to an end. So this is actually my last concert with the Main Street Symphony, as my wife and I are expecting our first child, and I wanted to spend that time with my family. These amazing musicians you see before you are the most kind, the most generous people that you will ever meet. I have been honored to lead them for these years, and they have been an amazing, amazing just journey for me and getting to know them. The one thing that I say that I will always miss is seeing the people, because the people are what make this orchestra happen. I tell them every single rehearsal, if y'all don't show up, I just look like a crazy person waving my arms around. That's all it is. So, Main Street Orchestra, thank you so much. Thank you. Is Anna Huffmaker around here? There she is. She's over here. Wave, Anna. Wave, Anna. There you go. Anna Huffmaker is the new owner of this orchestra. It has always been in the Huffmaker family. It was the vision of Dixie Huffmaker to make this orchestra happen, and it did because of her and because of the family. And I'm eternally grateful to them for including me in on this wonderful journey. So, our final piece tonight is going to be one that I am very excited about. This is the Battle Hymn of the Republic, and I hope you enjoy it. Sabrina, you want to say a few words? All right. That looks like a lot of words.
I can talk fast. Okay, I have several things to mention here. First of all, thank you to the audience. This is what we play for. Another thank you to Anna Huffmaker, because without her, we would not be here. But I'd really like to share a few comments that I have solicited from various members of the orchestra you'll really get a feeling of what Thomas means to all of us. Having a community to practice with has been therapeutic and has helped me become a better player with all the tips Thomas has given us during rehearsals. MSSO was the very first orchestra I have had the privilege to play with as an amateur. Your passion, patience, and musicality has made a lasting impact. I truly believe we have all grown tremendously thanks to your guidance. MSSO has been a wonderful learning experience, as well as a friendly, welcoming group of people. Thomas is a patient, talented guy who really cares about the music and its players. And this is my favorite comment. As a mature adult beginner, I know I was out of tune, off key, and sometimes even on the wrong string. But Thomas was so helpful that my journey has gotten a lot easier. We will miss you.
Thank you everybody for being here today. Thank you so much for participating. I believe the Silver Wings are ready.
The American paratrooper, born of fire in the skies of World War II, more than half a century ago, has since struck fear and terror into those foolish enough to oppose them. Relentless in their skill and courage, not only in the air, but also on the ground, these brave soldiers from the sky have forged for themselves a place of honor in America's history, past, present, and future. Ladies and gentlemen, if you take a look at the sky right now above you, you have three beautiful black and silver canopies. These, ladies and gentlemen, are your Silver Wings. Our jumpers today jump from an altitude of 5,000 feet out of a Cessna 182. You'll see today that these jumpers are going to execute beautiful canopy skills as they dance around the sky with their red smoke. Today, our three jumpers are jumping three different flags. And look at there is the American flag. It is out.
If tomorrow all the things were gone, I'd work for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife. I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston, and New York to LA, where there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free, and I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me, and I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you've been a wonderful crowd. Now, if I can go ahead and take just one more second of your time, I want to introduce our beautiful jumpers that we had here today. So our first jumper jumping the American flag, Staff Sergeant Burgess from Fort Walton Beach, Florida, has over 1,800 jumps. Let's give it up. All right, our second jumper is Sergeant First Class Roiny Reynoso from the Dominican Republic, has over 2,000 jumps. And our final jumper, Staff Sergeant Eric Wood, jumping the POW flag, has over 1,000 jumps. Let's give it up for our jumpers tonight. All right, on behalf of Airborne School and the Silver Wings, we want to thank you guys for coming out and watching this beautiful demonstration. I'm Staff Sergeant Norton. Y'all have a great night.
Could not wait.